All eyes see, yet no one dares to speak. An intimate secret romance between Bruno Mars and Rosé unfolds behind spotlights, silence, and painful choices. "Don't look at me," Rosé whispered amid the explosion of cameras that burst like gunfire, while Bruno Mars's hand still held her wrist, too long to be called coincidence, too brief to be called freedom. White lights reflected off the marble floor of the arena's backstage, blinding and exposing every small movement left unhidden. Salty sweat mixed with the scent of hairspray and heated metal from the lighting rigs, the air trembling with bass still echoing from the stage. Bruno stood half-leaning against the wall, his red jacket open, his chest rising and falling unevenly, not from the exhaustion of singing, but from the sentence that had just slipped from Rosé's lips, sharper than any criticism. "I can't keep living like this." Outside, thousands of eyes were still fixed on the empty stage, waiting for an encore that would never come. Inside, two people with separate worlds stood facing each other, trapped in a narrow room heavy with secrets. Bruno ran a hand over his face, his fingers trembling, a small habit that surfaced whenever he had to choose between two equally painful paths. He looked at Rosé and saw his own reflection in her eyes, a man skilled at hiding wounds behind a flamboyant smile, a child who learned early that love must be kept quiet so it wouldn't be stolen. Rosé turned her face away, her blonde hair brushing her cheek, leaving behind the faint trace of rose perfume, too gentle for a night this tense. Her chest tightened, not from lack of air, but from memory. She remembered silent nights in nameless hotels, pressing her ear to the door to ensure the hallway was empty before knocking on Bruno's room with their agreed code. 3 short knocks, a pause, 1 long knock. A small ritual that made her feel both safe and guilty. "I see them," she said softly, her voice nearly drowned by the passing crew. "All eyes see Bruno, they know, they just choose to stay silent." Bruno let out a short, bitter laugh, the kind he usually used to lighten the mood, now sounding like cracked glass. "Silence is cheap," he replied. "Consequences aren't." His mind drifted back to his childhood in Honolulu, a small house filled with music, a father who taught him the stage was a sanctuary, a mother who taught him to guard his heart tightly. From there, he grew into a man who knew how to charm the world without ever truly giving himself away. Until Rosé arrived, with her honest gaze and unhidden scars. Rosé stepped closer, the distance shrinking until she could feel the warmth of Bruno's breath on her skin. Her fingers lifted hesitantly, then touched his arm. A simple gesture carrying thousands of memories. Laughter in a Paris apartment kitchen as they failed at cooking pasta. Tears in a Tokyo airport during a brief goodbye. The heavy silence inside a dark New York car when the first rumor flashed across a phone screen. "I'm tired of being a shadow," Rosé said, finally looking straight at him. Fear lived there, so did resolve. She had always noticed Bruno's small habits, the way he bit his lower lip when nervous, the way his shoulders slumped when he gave up. Tonight, those shoulders were still tense. Footsteps stopped at the doorway. Bruno's manager appeared, face rigid, eyes scanning the room with predatory instinct. The silence thickened. Rosé withdrew her hand reflexively, as if burned. Bruno gave his manager a brief nod, a signal that carried 10 unspoken sentences. The door closed again, but the chill of a third presence lingered. "A threat?" Rosé asked. "A reminder," Bruno answered. He exhaled slowly, the bitter aroma of coffee from the cup on the table mixing with metal and sweat. "Of what would be lost." Rosé let out a quiet laugh, barely audible. "I've already lost so much." She remembered her trainee days, training until her legs trembled, criticism cutting deep, the fear of never being enough. She learned to survive with discipline and a smile. But this love was different. This love demanded a courage she had never been taught. The night crept forward. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the window like a metronome. Bruno walked over and stared at the city lights blurred by water. He pressed his forehead to the cold glass, an old habit to quiet the noise in his head. "If we speak," he said without turning, "the world will scream." "If we stay silent," Rosé replied, "we're the ones who break." The words hung between them heavy. Bruno turned around, his eyes red, not from tears spilled, but from those held back. He stepped closer, slowly, as if each step had to be negotiated with fate. He lifted Rosé's chin with 2 fingers, gently, a gesture that always made her feel at home. "I'm afraid," he admitted, his voice rough. "Not of them, of myself, of the possibility that I won't be brave enough." Rosé closed her eyes, feeling his touch, breathing him in, the familiar scent of soap and wood. She opened her eyes again, resolute. "I'm afraid too, but I choose to be afraid together, not alone." In the distance, lightning split the sky, briefly flooding the room with light. In that flash, Bruno saw a future divided, one path filled with cheers and loss, another quiet, lined with painful honesty. He pulled Rosé into his arms, holding her tightly, as if trying to merge 2 heartbeats into one rhythm. His hands trembled, but his embrace was firm. They stood there as the world outside kept moving, choosing silence or noise according to its own interests. Between the scent of rain and metal, inside a room full of secrets, Bruno and Rosé finally understood that their love was not merely a feeling. It was a decision that had to be made with open eyes, without illusion. The rain had softened into a steady whisper when Bruno finally loosened his arms, though he didn't step away. His forehead rested against Rosé's, breath mingling, the air between them charged with everything they were still refusing to say. "You know what they'll do to you," he said quietly, voice low and tight. "They'll tear you apart first. They always go for you before they come for me." Rosé let out a shaky breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "Don't pretend this is protection," she replied, eyes blazing now. "It's control dressed up as care, and I'm tired of pretending I don't feel that difference." That hit harder than any headline ever could. Bruno pulled back just enough to look at her properly. Her eyes were glassy, but her jaw was set. This wasn't a plea. It was a line being drawn. "You think I don't feel trapped?" he shot back, heat creeping into his voice. "Every move I make is owned by someone else. My smile, my silence, even my mistakes. This," he gestured between them, his hand hovering but not touching, "is the only thing that's ever felt like mine." "And yet you keep locking it in the dark," Rosé snapped. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides, nails biting into her palms. "You take me in secret, you love me in shadows, and then you ask me to be grateful for scraps of daylight." The word love landed between them, loud in its softness. Bruno froze. For a split second, the confident performer vanished, replaced by a man staring at something fragile he didn't trust himself to hold. "I never said," he began. "But you show it," Rosé interrupted, stepping closer again, invading his space. "You show it when you wake up before me and just watch like you're afraid I'll disappear. You show it when you memorize my schedule better than your own. You show it every time you flinch when someone says my name too loudly." His throat tightened. "That doesn't mean I know how to survive it." Silence swelled, thick and suffocating, until a sudden vibration shattered it. Rosé's phone lit up on the table. One message, then another, then 5 more in rapid succession. She didn't need to read them to know. Bruno did anyway, his face drained of color. "They have pictures," he said slowly. "Not tonight, from weeks ago, Paris." Rosé felt the floor tilt beneath her. Paris. The cafe near the river. The afternoon they dared to sit outside, sunglasses on, fingers brushing beneath the table like teenagers playing with fire. "So it started," she whispered. "No," Bruno corrected, anger flaring sharp and dangerous now. "It's been waiting." Her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it ring twice before answering, lifting it to her ear without a word. "Rosé," a woman's voice said smoothly, too smoothly. "We need to talk tonight." Rosé's gaze locked with Bruno as she listened, every muscle in her body going rigid. "You don't get to summon me," she replied coolly. A pause, then a thin smile she could hear through the line. "You don't get to decide that anymore." The call ended. Bruno swore under his breath, packing now, running both hands through his hair. "They're moving faster than I thought." "Good," Rosé said suddenly. He stopped short. "Good." "Yes," she said, voice trembling but fierce. "Because I'm done being scared quietly. If this explodes, let it explode honestly. He stared at her like she'd just set fire to the room. You think honesty survives explosions? I think lies rot us from the inside, she shot back. Tears finally slipped free, but she didn't bother wiping them away. I've been strong my whole life for other people's expectations. I won't be strong against my own heart, too. Bruno crossed the distance in 2 strides and grabbed her hands, holding them tight. If you walk into this, there's no clean ending. No neat story. They'll pit us against each other. They'll make you doubt me. Rosé squeezed his hands back, grounding him as much as herself. Then don't give them that power. Don't disappear when it gets ugly. Don't choose silence over me again. Again, the word sliced deep, dragging up every night he'd left first, every call he'd ended too soon, every moment he'd chosen safety over truth. He nodded once sharply, as if committing to something irreversible. Okay, he said, no more disappearing. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant, like a warning or a promise. Inside, 2 people stood at the edge of a choice that would rewrite everything they thought they knew about love, fame, and the cost of being seen. And for the first time, neither of them looked away. The city was still awake when they stepped out into the rain, the night smelling of wet asphalt and electricity. Bruno pulled his hood low, instinctive, while Rosé walked half a step ahead, chin lifted, as if daring the world to recognize her. Every passing car felt like an eye. Every reflection in the glass storefronts felt like an accusation. You're shaking, Bruno said as they reached the car. I'm angry, Rosé corrected, yanking the door open harder than necessary. There's a difference. He slid into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel without starting the engine. Anger gets you reckless. And fear keeps you obedient, she fired back. Look where that's gotten us. The silence that followed was sharp, vibrating with words they'd both been storing for too long. Rain streaked down the windshield like tears no one wanted to admit to. They called me a liability once, Rosé continued, her voice quieter but no less cutting. Not because I was careless, because I was human, because I felt things too openly. And tonight, for the first time, I'm wondering if they were right, or if I just let them convince me I was wrong for wanting more. Bruno started the engine, the low hum filling the car. You're not a liability, he said, jaw tight. You're a threat, and they hate what they can't control. She turned to him then, eyes burning. Then why do you still let them control you? He laughed once, hollow. Because control is the price of survival in this world. No, Rosé snapped. Control is the price of comfort. Survival is something else entirely. They drove in tense silence until the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. Bruno finally pulled into an underground garage, killing the engine. The quiet felt dangerous. You want honesty? He asked suddenly, voice rough. Fine. I'm scared that if we step into the light together, you'll realize I'm not worth the fallout. Rosé stared at him, stunned. That's what this is about. You think I don't know exactly what this costs? She leaned closer, her voice dropping, trembling with intensity. I choose you every time I walk away from safety, every time I lie for you, every time I wake up alone in a bed that smells like you and pretend it doesn't hurt. Bruno's breath hitched. I never asked you to. No, she cut in. You just let me. The words were brutal in their honesty. He closed his eyes, pressing his forehead to the steering wheel. I don't know how to love without losing myself. Rosé reached out, fingers brushing his wrist, grounding him. Then let's get lost together, she said softly. Or stop pretending this is love. That did it. Bruno looked at her, really looked, and something in him finally broke open. I love you, he said, the words spilling out raw and unpolished. I've loved you longer than I've admitted to myself, and I hate that loving you feels like rebellion. Rosé's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. Then rebel, she whispered, for once. A phone buzz shattered the moment. Bruno glanced at the screen and swore. They've leaked something. A statement's already drafted, without us. Rosé's mouth curved into a sad, knowing smile. Of course they have. He turned to her, urgency flooding his voice. If we don't respond, they'll write our story for us. "And if we do?" she asked. "Everything changes." She inhaled deeply, steadying herself, then nodded. "Good. I'm done living in a story where I don't get a voice." They sat there, rain echoing above them, two silhouettes framed by concrete and shadow, choosing between silence and truth. When Bruno reached for her hand this time, there was no hesitation, no secrecy. Just a promise, fragile, terrifying, and real, that whatever came next, they would face it with their eyes open. And for the first time since the world had started watching them so closely, neither of them felt invisible anymore. The conference room smelled of polished wood and cold ambition. A long glass table divided the space like a fault line, and on one side sat faces that had learned how to smile without warmth. On the other, Bruno and Rosé sat shoulder to shoulder, fingers brushing beneath the table, the only proof they were not alone. "You've put us in an impossible position," the woman at the head of the table said, her voice calm, surgical. "This was supposed to stay contained." Rosé leaned forward before Bruno could speak. "You don't get to decide what stays hidden when it's my life you're managing like inventory." A murmur rippled around the room. Bruno felt it, the shift. He squeezed Rosé's hand once, a silent warning, but she didn't pull back. "We're talking about brands, contracts, millions of dollars," another man cut in. "Feelings don't outweigh." "Stop," Bruno snapped, his voice sharp enough to slice through the room. He rarely raised it like this, and the shock showed. "You don't get to reduce her to a variable in your risk assessment." The woman's eyes flicked between them, calculating. "So it's true, then." Rosé laughed, a brittle sound. "You already knew. Everyone knows. The only difference is whether we keep lying." "Lies are what keep careers intact," the woman replied coolly. "You think the public wants the truth. They want a fantasy that doesn't threaten them." Bruno pushed back his chair and stood, palms flat on the table. "Then sell a different fantasy," he said. "One where we're not ashamed of being human." Silence crashed down, heavy and dangerous. "You're asking for war," the woman said. "No," Rosé said quietly, standing beside him. "We're asking for dignity." A phone buzzed, then another. One of the assistants glanced down, eyes widening. "It's already out," she whispered. "Someone leaked the Paris photos, unedited." The room erupted. Voices overlapped, sharp and panicked. Bruno felt Rosé's grip tighten, her nails biting into his skin, grounding him as his heart slammed against his ribs. The woman turned pale. This wasn't authorized. Rosé met her gaze, unflinching. "Neither was controlling my life." They were ushered out into chaos, hallways buzzing, phones ringing, screens lighting up with headlines that multiplied by the second. Outside, flashes exploded like fireworks gone wrong, cameras hungry, voices shouting their names as if ownership came with recognition. "Rosé, is it true?" "Bruno, were you hiding this? How long has this been going on?" Rosé froze for half a heartbeat, breath caught. Bruno felt it and stepped forward, pulling her close, one arm firm around her shoulders. "Yes," Rosé said suddenly, her voice clear, trembling but unbroken. "It's true." The world seemed to inhale sharply. Bruno turned to her, stunned. "Rosé." "I'm done," she said, not looking at him, but at the sea of faces. "I'm done being silent so other people can stay comfortable." A reporter shouted, "Are you afraid of the backlash?" Rosé smiled then, small and sad and fierce. "I'm more afraid of disappearing." Bruno's chest ached. He leaned into the microphones, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the noise. "I love her," he said simply. "And if that costs me something, then maybe it's time I paid the price." The reaction was instant and violent. Cheers clashed with boos. Headlines rewrote themselves in real time. Phones rang nonstop. Somewhere behind them, a door slammed. They escaped into the car as security fought the crowd. Inside, the quiet was deafening. Rosé's hands shook now, adrenaline finally breaking loose. "You didn't have to say that," she whispered. "Yes, I did," Bruno replied, turning to her fully. "I should have said it a long time ago." Tears spilled over then, unstoppable. "Everything going to change." He reached up, brushing them away with his thumb. I know. She laughed through tears, breathless. I'm terrified. So am I, he admitted. But for the first time, it feels like the right kind of fear. They sat there, wrapped in the aftermath of a truth released too late, and yet somehow right on time. Outside, the world tore itself apart over their names. Inside, two hearts beat wildly, bruised but honest, no longer hiding. And in the wreckage of silence, something dangerously real began to breathe. The apartment was too quiet for what they had just unleashed on the world. No cameras, no handlers, just the low hum of the city seeping through the windows and the sharp aftertaste of adrenaline still clinging to their tongues. Rosé kicked off her heels, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Say it again, she demanded, turning on him, eyes bright and furious and afraid all at once. Say it to me without microphones, without witnesses. Bruno didn't hesitate. I love you. The simplicity of it broke something open in her. She laughed, a short, breathless sound that collapsed into a sob she hadn't planned on letting out. Do you have any idea what you just did to my life? He stepped closer. I just told the truth. No, she snapped, tears streaking down now, anger fueling every word. You detonated it. You set it on fire in front of everyone and called it honesty. And you would rather I lied. His voice rose, heat meeting heat. You stood there and said you were done being silent. I wasn't about to let you bleed alone. She shoved his chest, not hard, but enough to make the point land. This isn't romantic rebellion, Bruno. This is contracts breaking, doors closing, people turning vicious. This is me being called reckless, ungrateful, disposable. He caught her wrists, not to restrain, but to keep her from pulling away. Look at me, he said firmly. I know exactly how ugly this gets. I've watched them destroy people with smiles on their faces. I stayed quiet because I was afraid. But tonight, his voice cracked, tonight I chose you over my fear. Rosé stared at him, breathing hard, emotions crashing into each other with no warning signs. I needed you to choose me before it cost everything, she whispered. And I needed you to push me, he shot back just as softly. Because if you hadn't, I would have kept hiding and called it protection. She yanked her hands free and turned away, packing, running her fingers through her hair like she was trying to pull herself back together. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the counter. She didn't look. They're already dissecting my past, she said bitterly. Every smile, every lyric, every time I didn't fit the image they sold. They're going to turn love into a scandal. Bruno leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally seeping in. They'll try to turn it into a weapon. And you, she asked sharply, what happens when they turn on you? When they start whispering that I'm a distraction, a mistake, a phase? He met her gaze without flinching. Then I'll tell them they don't get to define what's real in my life. Rosé laughed again, hollow this time. You make it sound so easy. It's not, he said immediately. It's terrifying. I keep thinking about everything I could lose. And then I think about losing you quietly, slowly, pretending it was noble. That scares me more. The honesty disarmed her. She walked back to him, standing so close their foreheads almost touched. I don't want to be brave for the cameras, she said. I want to be messy and afraid and still chosen. He lifted her chin, eyes burning. Then stopped testing whether I'll run. Her breath hitched. Promise me you won't. I can't promise I won't be scared, he replied, but I can promise I won't disappear. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. If this destroys us. It won't, he interrupted. You don't know that, she snapped. I know us, he said, pressing his forehead to hers. And I know that pretending we're nothing would destroy us faster. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city lights flickered outside, distant sirens weaving into the night like a reminder that chaos didn't pause just because they needed air. Rosé finally whispered, I hate that I love you like this. Bruno smiled sadly. I hate that it took the world watching for me to stop lying about it. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, fast, uneven, human. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. He wrapped his arms around her, holding on like letting go was no longer an option. Then we face tomorrow together." Her phone buzzed again. This time she picked it up, glanced at the screen, and exhaled slowly. "They want a follow-up statement, clarification, damage control." Bruno chuckled darkly. "They always want control back." Rosé locked her phone and set it face down. "They can wait." He looked down at her, surprised. "You sure?" She nodded, eyes steady despite the storm behind them. "For once, I want the truth to breathe before it gets packaged." Bruno kissed her forehead, gentle but resolute. "Then let it breathe." Outside, the world was already sharpening its knives, rewriting narratives, choosing sides. Inside the apartment, two people stood in the wreckage of honesty, shaken and exposed, but no longer divided by silence. And whatever came next, it would come for both of them, out in the open, impossible to ignore.